All right, so good afternoon, everyone. We'll give everyone a few minutes to join, and then we will start the webinar more or less on time. All right. Okay, I think we'll start. So welcome, everyone. Welcome to the 7th edition of the Eurisy and .Space Space for Climate webinar. And today we're going to talk about space for sustainable tourism. Before we start, let me take you through some of the logistics. If this thing decides to work. So, as I said, this is part of a series of monthly webinars that Eurisy organizes together with the .Space Foundation, also known as Groundstation.Space, where we talk about space opportunities for climate. And every month we have a different topic roughly related to climate, to the European Green Deal, and to related topics. And today the topic is space for sustainable tourism. What we're going to talk about today is, after my welcome, we will introduce the topic, tourism, to you. We'll go through a few news and events relevant to the topic. We'll have interesting speakers. We have 3 speakers lined up for you, so welcome to our speakers. And then we'll go through some of the most relevant funding calls on this topic. And that's the end of the webinar, but after that we can go to the Open Campus Forum, which is on our website, and I will tell you how that works at the end of the webinar, where we will make the presentations available, we'll make the replay available, and we can have a continued discussion on the topics that we've discussed today. Most of us are very familiar with Zoom, but in case you're not, please mute your microphone. That's for the panelists mostly, and for everyone else, I encourage you to use the chat. Use the chat to introduce yourself. We'd like to know who we have joining the webinar, to ask questions to the speakers and make any general remarks you feel applicable. Also, for questions to the speakers, as I said, we'd like to use the chat for that. So if you have any questions to the speakers, we have time for questions after the speakers are finished. Please ask them in the chat, and we will make sure that if we have enough time, that we'll ask them to the speakers, and otherwise we'll feed them to the speakers afterwards. My name is Remco Timmermans. I represent Groundstation.Space, the .Space Foundation, and .Space is an open innovation network linking the world of space data to society, to non-space business. We do that by showcasing opportunities that space data offer to non-space sectors, bringing together academia, industry, government players, space and non-space, and organizing news on our website, Groundstation.Space. We have relevant news. We organize events like this. We organize workshops. We have a tender desk, and we help you find access to data, access to consortia partners, and access to the world of space data in general. And with that, I'd like to hand over to my colleague Alessandra to introduce Eurisy for you.
I think you can hear me, and I think you can also see my screen. Okay.
All good.
Okay, perfect. So hello, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Alessandra Vernile. I am project officer at Eurisy, and today I will be co-hosting together with Remco this session. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Eurisy, but just to give you a very quick introduction on the organization. Eurisy is a non-governmental organization based in Paris, and we are an association of space agencies. Our mission can be summarized into 3 keywords. The first one is explore. So our objective is, in this sense, raise awareness on satellite applications to non-space actors. Connect, so facilitate the dialogue, as I said, between space and non-space communities, and also inform, so giving up bottom-up feedback on user needs and challenges. Our members are mostly, as I said, space agencies and offices from all around Europe. As you can see, we have the European Space Agency, one of our main partners, and we also have UK Space Agency, the German, the Italian Space Agency, the Belgium, the Netherlands, and many more. This is the 7th and actually last session of the Space for Climate webinar series. The previous one was dedicated on space data for urban green spaces, and I invite you to visit the Eurisy website to have a look at the article that summarizes the events that took place back in early June. And I think I can proceed also in introducing a bit to you, provide you a bit of a background information on sustainable tourism. Tourism is today one of the economic activities with most potential to generate growth and employment around Europe. Just think about that tourism contributes to 4% of the European GDP, and also indirects generate around 10% of the European GDP, creating also new jobs. More than in any other sector, economic sector, tourism can seriously develop important synergies with interactions with environment and society, but climate change can be an obstacle and a challenge for industries active in the tourism. And now the sector needs to change a bit the way is organized. Space can contribute to this organization, to this transformation of the touristic sector, in particular in view of the different climate challenges, climate change effects and consequences. So space data and space technology can provide tourists with maps, reliable maps, timetable, useful information, location, weather report, and many more that could make a better experience for the tourist itself, so can improve the travel experience. In the meantime, during this year and a half today, now we have COVID pandemic. COVID pandemic impact heavily on the tourist industry. A lot of actions and measures have been undertaken to limit the spread of the virus. And now the crisis is still ongoing, even though, I mean, today the borders are open and the rates of vaccination are increasing. But space can also be helpful in this sense. There are a series of initiatives that I would like to mention to you. One is Space for Tourism, but Elena will tell you more later during the webinar itself. And also from Eurisy side, we looked at space technology, not just to improve the experience of the tourists, but also to use technologies, in particular satellite application, to support and manage the safeguard of historical cities, and at the same time enhance the services from the cultural and creative sectors. If you want to know more about this, I invite you to visit our website, and in particular we have a publication, this is Satellites Going Local, fully dedicated to culture, but also if you visit our website, we have an entire database dedicated to user cases, and a part of that are highly dedicated to tourism and leisure. Have a look there to have a bit of an idea of what are the potential applications of satellite applications for the tourism industry. I think that's it for this short introduction on my side. So Remco, I think I can give you back the word.
Okay, thanks very much, Alessandra, and I will share my screen again. Yes, here we go. So before we move to our speakers, I would like to take you through a few newsworthy things that have happened over the last months, and highlight a few events that are relevant to the topic. First of all, the space tourism that we're not talking about today. This has nothing to do with Earth observation, yet this is what people think that tourism and space have in common. And July will be an exciting month because we'll see, well, hopefully if the planning will happen, we'll see one of these three gentlemen go into space in their own spacecraft. But this is what people think about when you talk about space and tourism, and that's obviously what we're not doing today. An interesting angle, and I'm really glad that Alessandra showed the examples of satellite applications for culture. Culture and tourism are of course, very highly mixed. But this is another angle of looking at some of the success stories that I always highlight in these webinars, and that's the Copernicus and Galileo Masters. We always see very inspiring new ideas and new initiatives coming up from these competitions. And as Groundstation, and I know as Eurisy as well, we fully support the Copernicus and Galileo Masters and help people to actually participate in these competitions. So in the Copernicus Masters in 2020, we saw 3 initiatives that are somewhat related to tourism applications. Imara, about nature's benefits for people, for local people, for visiting people. Safe navigation on ice, something we see in the cruise industry, a lot of interest in new routes, not just in cruise tourism, in shipping in general, but navigation on ice and through ice in polar regions is an important one. One of the Dutch participants, Reef Support, won the Copernicus Masters with an application for coral reefs, very interesting to look at. But other than that, there are very few winners that have direct tourism or travel applications in the Copernicus Masters, but I did want to highlight one that won in 2015, making a city assistant to see the air quality, but also routes in cities specifically for visitors. What we do see is many more examples, and I think that's characteristic of space data in tourism, many more applications in satellite navigation in the Galileo Masters. So this is just an overview of some of the winners of the past 5-6 years in the Galileo Masters. So all tourism applications based on geolocation, and for obvious reasons we understand why, but it will be interesting to look at other elements of space data in relation to tourism as well. But these are definitely very inspiring examples, in addition to what Alessandra showed us, to see what people have already come up with in applications for tourism. This is what we're going to talk about later, but I do want to highlight it. This is a very important tender that is coming out by ESA and WTF Lucerne. We'll hear about that later. And of course, the Galileo and Copernicus Masters. As I said, Eurisy and Groundstation are supporters of this. And I would like to invite anyone interested in developing their idea for tourism or for anything really using space data to register before the 19th of July. That's the cutoff for the Galileo and Copernicus Masters 2021. Register in the next 2 weeks to participate. A few events. This one we cannot miss, and I include this one. This is not a space or space data event. This is the biggest the biggest tourism trade fair in the world that I'm hope we all familiar with, the ITB in Berlin. There are equivalents in London and in other places around the world, but this is definitely the biggest. And I'm mentioning this because in the last edition in 2019 and 2020, Copernicus was present here to start feeding the tourism industry with the benefits of space data. And I'm really hoping, I didn't check, but I'm really hoping that the European Space Program will represent it at ITB in 2022, the next edition, which will happen in person. If everything goes the way the world is planning, then that will happen in Berlin in March 2022. Another one, tomorrow we have a webinar organized by the Netherlands Space Office about space opportunities in the Horizon Europe program, which goes further than just tourism. It's about climate applications tomorrow. But if you're interested in looking a bit further, a bit wider than just tourism, then definitely join this webinar where we'll go much deeper into which calls are available and how to apply for these Horizon Europe funding calls. So now I'd like to hand it back to Alessandra and introduce our speakers.
Thank you very much, Remco. So let's start immediately with the speakers of today. The first speaker is Dirk de Ketelaere. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Dirk is a senior researcher at Integrated Resources Management Company, an environmental research company based in Malta. He has a background in civil engineering at the Free University in Brussels, and he has also multiple research experiences in his background. He also participated as government consultant to the university, to the government of Malta for 5 years, and has also been a project manager for multiple European projects. Just to mention a couple of them, there is Pleiades and Sirius, which focus on satellite imagery assisted irrigation services. Dirk is also a founding member of the Malta Water Association, an NGO aimed at raising awareness of the precarious situations of Malta's freshwater resources, and he served as president of the association between 2011 and 2014. Dirk, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Alessandra, for this great introduction. Thanks also to Remco for inviting me to be a speaker. So let me test if my... Okay, so Remco, I believe my presentation is now full screen mode. So my name, as Alessandra said, is Dirk de Ketelaere. I'm a hydrologist. I've now been living in Malta for the last 35 years. And just in case, Malta is located due south of Sicily, and we are somehow at a lower compared to Tunis. So if there is a heat wave at the moment in Tunis, you can be sure that we are also in the same heat wave. For my presentation today, I would like to present you with our project that ran over 3 years, and in which the Malta case study focused on the safeguarding of the green and blue open spaces of Malta's Grand Harbour. Now, I structured this presentation with 2 short intros about our company and how we have been trying to promote the use of satellite imagery derived applications in Malta. Then I also like to share with you our portfolio emitting participatory GIS with the satellite derived products, because that is really our forte at the moment. And therefore, I would like to share with you some outcomes of the application of participatory GIS and the role of satellite imagery, before then coming to the main topic of my presentation, and that is in relation to the ENPI CBCMET funded Mare Nostrum project. We have an ongoing project, Aquacycle, where we are trying actually to extend the role of PGS to the domain of water and sanitation. So in terms of landmarks, back in 1996, 2 years after we set up Integrated Resources Management Company Limited in Malta, we hosted the annual conference of the European Association of Remote Sensing Laboratories. Then in 2017, we hosted the Copernicus Training and Information Session. We co-hosted that with Space Tech from Belgium. And this event was organized on the occasion of Malta's presidency of the Council of the European Union. And through Stefan Urovic from Space Tech, we got emboldened and we applied to become a member of the Copernicus Academy. So since 2017, we have also been following monthly webinars, similar to the ones Eurisy is organizing with the partners in the Netherlands. In terms of projects, we have, as Alessandra mentioned, been involved foremost in irrigation management projects that looked at the use of satellite imagery to optimize the irrigation services. So combined period of 6 years. Then I will come to the project that we will be discussing today, because that deals more precisely with sustainable tourism. And if you see that there is no continuation beyond 2015, that is because in the most recent years, I have been, together with the colleague speaker Tarek Habib, been an evaluator of Horizon 2020 space goals, and also together with Tarek, been a reviewer ongoing projects that were selected in the Horizon 2020 program. So to give you a taste of the participatory GIS, in Sirius we had 7 case studies in different continents. And our foremost case study for IREMCO, we visited Egypt on a 3-weekly basis at the time. And we worked in Egypt with farmers in the Nile Delta. And typically in these workshops, we invite them in the morning to tell us about the traditional ways of managing their land, their water. And in the afternoon, we invite them to draw a vision of their land and water management. Here you see farmers from the Sesafa and the dugout canals in the Nile Delta drawing a new vision for a fair and equitable sharing of water. Same in Mediterranean climate, where the farmers explained to us on the basis of a satellite image that they were in conflict with the downstream of a dam. And the lady with the colorful dress is actually very, is listening very intently, because she is a responsible representative of the Brazilian Water Authority. So when they informed her that the conflict could be resolved by relocating a reservoir that had been built in their area, that was actually executed within 3 months from that meeting. Also in Brazil, we used again satellite imagery for farmers to explain to us their water management situation. Here in Morada, they wanted to replace their irrigation system, and then they set about drawing how this new irrigation system would look like. So I have to rush through this. It would be a separate presentation altogether, but I wish to share with you now some outcomes of the Mare Nostrum project, where we looked at safeguarding the blue and green open spaces. Now, on the left, you have a satellite image which you may think that Malta looks a very green island. Actually, we are an extremely densely populated island. Hardly any spaces left for open spaces. You see here on the bottom right picture of St. Elmo, which guards the entrance to the Grand Harbour. And at the top picture, we live in one of the peninsulas that face the Grand Harbour, or face Valletta rather. And this is a picture from our roof, where you see that basically we are looking at the stone forest. Evidently in this project, we were looking at reviewing legislation, policy, and existing research on IZM. I chose this case study of the Grand Harbour because we realized that there was a really high rate of further development in this area. And we try to bring this into view by mapping the open spaces. Now, for that, we set about extracting first and foremost relevant features, such as the built-up areas. There's so many fortifications in Malta, all dating back to the times of the knights. There are kilometers and kilometers of fortifications. They're shown here in brown on this map. And this map suggests there are also some wooded areas. To characterize these open spaces, we were interested to collect information about their current use. And there we distinguish between what is agriculture, what is natural, and what is man-made. We also wanted to understand better what is the level of access, the means of access, and whether these natural open spaces were disturbed or undisturbed, or in the case of man-made open spaces, what about their maintenance? So we used georeference satellite imaging to then add the polygons of the built-up areas, masking those away, and we end up with potential open spaces. And then we set about printing maps, and in red you see here the polygons of potential open spaces. And on the left you see a code book, because all the legends that we drew up had to be synthesized into the smallest possible notation, so as not to complicate the field survey. Also note that we are particularly interested in tree types. So also the tree types were registered. And coming back from field, on the left you see a data sheet, and on the right you see the annotation of the printed A3 copies of the survey sheets. So keying that in Excel and digitizing it, we use the integrated land and water information system of ITC, where we've been using since the very outset. And finally, I share here a few maps which depict the outcome of the surveys. So for example, on the right, you see the natural, agricultural, and man-made open spaces, the levels of access, the tree cover, and in this case, the tree cover is the canopy cover, the degree of disturbance of the natural open spaces, and the level of maintenance in man-made open spaces. Now, for the last map, an interesting anecdote perhaps is that we had two survey teams. One was composed of entirely Maltese surveyors. The other was composed of a Greek lady and a Dutch lady. And because of their cultural background, diverse cultural background, their interpretation of the level of maintenance was entirely different. So whereas the Greek lady would rather be happy if there was playing grounds with sufficient safety features, the lady from the Netherlands also wanted to see that they were properly painted and in nice colors. So there is a little bit of ambiguity always in producing these kind of maps, of course. Now, coming to the tourism, we invited the local community to not only comment and share these maps, but we invited them to draw heritage tales. Tales that would connect the area that has an extremely rich history from historical, cultural, religious, unit point of view, and also connected with the blue open spaces, because there are very attractive yacht marinas. It's a real pleasure to walk around this area, especially if you follow the seashore. We did that through the organization of something like 10 workshops with the local community. We supplied Wacom tablets for participants to draw. Amazingly, we had in one workshop participation of 6 mayors, because it really caught their imagination that people reported back that they had seen our maps, and that some of the open spaces which were showing as open spaces on our maps had already disappeared in the time we were doing the field mapping. So it proved an extremely important exercise. We collated all the aspirations of the local community in a charter that we put online and invited people to subscribe to. And the foremost champion of our research was Her Excellency, the President of Malta, who at the time ran an NGO for the well-being of society, and she could therefore easily connect her work with the aspirations of her own NGO. Today, you can still go in more detail through all our results. There is a dedicated website where you can explore the maps in more detail. I showed you the overall outcome. Obviously, you can zoom, etc. Look at pictures of these sites. You can see how we invited to draw a trail, read up in more detail on the charter. And then another takeaway is that we produced a 2-hour documentary on this research, which was screened 4 times on national TV in Malta. It is in the Maltese language, which is an interesting topic on its own, being a language of Semitic origin. It's with subtitles in English, and I will not divulge more. It also brings the largest ever protest in Malta we have seen in the time since Malta became, a country that joined the European Union. Just a hint, we never stand still. in our ongoing projects, we are trying to apply the PGIS once again, and this time to the application of drawing up treated wastewater reuse action plans. We have case studies in Lebanon, Spain, and Tunisia. Just to give you an idea, we will demonstrate the new treatment system in these 3 countries. Some of the maps are styled with many places of interest. Here, the last one in Murcia in Spain shows, and in actual fact, in Murcia, there is already a very high level of reuse of treated effluent, something which we unfortunately do not have either in Malta nor in Tunisia, and certainly not in Jordan. So with this, I thank you for your attention, sharing also a picture with Her Excellency, the President of Malta, and where it also brings my partner. Together we run the company since 1994. And it also brings our daughter, who decided in her teenage years that her parents worked far too hard and she was never going to take up our business. And well, things can turn around. Today she is working in cybersecurity and she's clocking 90-hour working weeks. So I don't clock those anymore. I used to, but she is working certainly very hard too. So thank you all for your attention. Feel free to ask questions. I'll be most happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dirk, for this interesting presentation. I would like now to give the floor to Tarek Habib. Tarek is a telecommunication engineer with a PhD in artificial intelligence applied to satellite imagery. Tarek worked at CNES, the French space agency, before evolving into strategy and business development activities. He has led international business development activities in different contexts, SME, a large European IT group, and a world leader of satellite-based service provider before starting his own company, Murmuration. Tarek, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thanks for having me here to present what we're doing in Murmuration. Let me share the screen. Okay, so I guess this is showing up nicely. So basically, Murmuration is actually a company that was created for this exact purpose. First of all, to quantify the environment and to see the first vertical is really applied to tourism. Our objective, our aim is to actually put the environmental dimension at the center of every decision-making process. This is something that might seem broad, but bear with me during the presentation, you will get exactly what we're doing. Two types of activities, mainly. We develop indicators on various environmental domains, so air, water, urbanization, biodiversity, etc., that are mainly derived from satellite Earth observation data. We extract actual indicators assessing the impact on society, economy, environment, etc. And we present the data via dashboards to decision makers, and I'll provide a couple of examples on that a bit later. We also have a branch that is fully dedicated to the general public that is called Flokeo.com, and here basically our motivation there was to, when we tackle a problem like sustainable tourism, for example, to provide an answer to every stakeholder. So if we are a policymaker, if we are a local authority, we will look into the indicators and dashboards. If we are the general public, we'll probably need to be in contact with sustainable tourism engaged professionals like travel agencies, hotels, etc., that are acting in situ, I would say, to support sustainability and sustainable projects. I will not talk a lot about Flokeo.com, but obviously feel free to visit. It's full of activities on the various social medias. There are a lot going on. So yeah, feel free to look at that. Now back to the challenge. The link between human activities and the impact on the environment, especially for tourism, is something that is extremely important, and that's being increasingly requested by the policy level, but also industrial level, and obviously as citizens as well. The idea is that we are able to monitor now the increase, for example, pollution, land degradation, etc. But liaising this or putting this in correlation to the anthropogenic activities, the human activities, is challenging. We are providing a solution that is based on satellite Earth observation data, using also statistics, in situ measurements, human flow modeling, and so on, to provide clear, unbiased information for government and coordination bodies, visualizing the data in advanced way, just to be able at a glance to spot, for example, trends, or to detect areas that need more attention, stuff like that. I like this scheme. I will not obviously go in these details, but these were one of the first exercises that we did. Is basically we have all of this wealth of data from, for example, Copernicus program, whether it's directly the Sentinel data or the core services data that can be used in multiple domains, and we wanted to link them to the tourism activities, whether they are valid or not, whether they are relevant or not in terms of revisit, resolution, physical quantities that are able to measure, and so on. So we are heavy users of these data, Sentinels and Copernicus core services, but not only. We also use, for example, Eurostat data when we are in European context. We use World Bank data. We use IATA data as well for arrivals. We use social media data, and so on and so forth. There are a number of data sources that we're using. If we look at the top part of this, so first half, so the top half of the scheme, we can see physical measurements, so air quality, water consumption and quality, urban sprawl, and artificialization. Here, these are, I would say, directly linked to data sets from Copernicus, but if we look at domain-specific, so tourism-specific thematics, so coastal tourism, mountain and rural tourism, here we also find interesting data, like we can measure coastal erosion, for example, from Sentinels 2 and 1. Seawater pollution using Sentinel-3. We have a lot of work on floating algae, for example, detection using Sentinel-2 near to the shores, or Sentinel-3. MODIS data as well. When it comes to mountain and rural tourism, we have the forest fires, now snow height, for example, and evolution throughout the years. Agrotourism, we have the regular, I would say, vegetation indices that we're all familiar with, but also protected natural areas and how they evolve in time. Evolution means whether they remain connected, for example, areas, whether they are hit by urbanization or not. Dirk also mentioned significant urbanization in different parts of the world, specifically Malta, and I have a couple of examples on that later as well. When we talk about urban tourism, there are also urban heat islands, light pollution, urban sprawl. All of this just to say that basically tourism is one of these domains that draws in, I would say, most of the competencies that evolve around Earth observation data. So that's from a technical point of view, but also from a societal point of view. Tourism is one of these. It is the, I would say, most critical domain when it comes to the equilibrium and compromises that we'll need to do in a world heavily impacted by climate change, for example. Because here we are talking mainly, when we talk about satellite data, we're talking mainly about the environmental dimension of sustainability, but also there is the economic and social leg to it that are of vital importance, and we will definitely need to do trade-offs on the local scale on whether we accept environmental degradation in favor for economical or societal benefits, and so on and so forth. So it's really one of these domains that crystallizes all the compromises and trade-offs that we will be facing increasingly as we enter in a world heavily impacted by climate change. Indicators. So this is basically our catalog. So we've developed 20 indicators characterizing water, air, biodiversity, infrastructure, but also dynamics of tourism. We combine these in order to extract the information required at in the area of interest. I will not go into these details, but obviously I will be happy to share the catalog if anyone is interested. Some examples, since we had Dirk as first speaker, so I thought I would choose one of our projects, recent projects actually, that we're doing with, my colleagues are filming at the same time, that we are doing with the Malta Tourism Authority. So we have developed a visualization dashboard for various environmental quantities and linked them to the tourism activity. So what you're seeing here, for example, it's really the Malta imperviousness, so soil artificialization, linked to the tourism infrastructure. So these are hotels, activities, ports, for example, leisure, beaches, and so on. So the idea, so obviously here you're seeing a static map, but we've shown them also the historical evolution of that to see if there is a link, if, for example, the urbanization is mostly induced by the tourism demand or new tourism infrastructure, or does tourism only follow the trend of urbanization in Malta, for example. Green infrastructures. So again, here the idea was to show the density of green areas in Malta, and to the idea was also to highlight some sort of like quality of life for the citizens, but also for tourism for tourists as well. With, for example, the mean distance between a point and a vegetation area. Obviously, the shorter the distance, the better. These are highly interactive, I would say, dashboards. So when you click on a cell on the map, everything gets updated. You can filter. You have all sorts of filtering capabilities just to work with the data and to see if if there are trends, for example, that can be extracted. Aggregation of data as well by neighborhood on a neighborhood level, just to try to extract this quality of life indication on a district or neighborhood level. Soil humidity. We've also created a multi-temporal view of the soil humidity. So here we're talking only about green water. So this is the water in the first 20 centimeters of soil throughout the various seasons. We know that Malta is heavily relying on desalination, for example. So it's a high energy consuming industry, and the idea was to give them also a view of the soil humidity and probably a proxy to the quantity of naturally available water in Malta as well. This also links with tourism, as tourism infrastructures like hotels, for example, or compounds, etc., are usually suspected of heavy water usage, generally due to the swimming pools, for example, and so on. Fourth example that we've developed for the Malta Tourism Authority is the air quality index. And Dirk rightly said these are animations, but yeah, here they are just static. That the Malta, for example, when you have a heat wave in Tunisia, you definitely feel it as well in Malta. It doesn't stop there. One of our major findings basically was that air quality in Malta is heavily relying on the traffic of the maritime route that crosses just beside the island. Our conclusion is that 85% of air quality on Malta is really dependent on the amount of traffic in this maritime route. So that's one of the major conclusions as well. So this is interesting also because so the Tourism Authority had the mandate to work on reducing the air quality impact from tourism. But then we can give them I would say the maximum impact that they can have. So here we're talking about 15% or 20% of the impact. The rest, they are just following what's happening around them. Fourth example, and very interesting here, we have correlated places of residence with social media data to have some sort of environmental footprint of a tourist. So that's something that is quite advanced. just to show, for example, if you're staying here, this is the area where you have an impact. If you're staying here, this is the area where you have an impact, and so on and so forth. So this was also quite useful indication regarding the density of visitation and the potential environmental impact per area in Malta. Last but not least, I was allowed to do so, so I'm just putting this there. We are happy to collaborate. We have advanced capabilities in the domains that I've just shown. We have identified multiple Horizon Europe calls, and I think that the team will go through these later. So we're happy to collaborate. So do not hesitate to contact us to participate with you in different projects. Thank you for your attention. I hope that I stuck to the 10 minutes. To be honest, I didn't follow the time.
Thank you very much, Tarek. Very interesting presentation and very interesting work you're doing at Murmuration. And now I would like to give the floor to two speakers this time. We have Elena Sholakova. Elena is head of innovation projects at the World Tourism Forum Lucerne, where she runs programs and innovation camps to support early stage startups operating in the tourism industry. She brings 5 years experience working for the United Nations World Tourism Organization, in particular working on tourism ecosystem development projects. And she's in the slot, she's sharing the slot with Davide Coppola. Davide Coppola is project manager and business developer at the ESA Space Solutions, so European Space Agency Space Solutions. He has been working at ESA since 2007 and has a long-standing experience as project manager and in building strategic international cooperation. Davide has also been in charge of more than 30 initiatives in various domains, just to mention few: energy, health, maritime and offshore, and lately with a focus on renewable energy, green transition, smart grids, and breakthrough technologies. Davide and Elena, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alessandra, for this great presentation. I would like to give a brief introduction on the work that we do at the World Tourism Forum Lucerne, and then together with Davide, we'll share some insights into our project collaboration using space technology to innovate tourism. So just a short intro, what we do at the WTFL. We're a global interactive travel, tourism and hospitality platform that is active since 2008. And our mission is connecting all stakeholders in the industry, of course, both public and private sector, into high-level discussions, forums, think tanks. We run innovation camps with the overall goal, of course, to shape a more sustainable future for the tourism sector. Our four main pillars of work are innovation, talent, diversity, and sustainable development. And since 5-6 years, we have been putting a lot of resources on advancing innovation projects in tourism, supporting startups and young entrepreneurs through our innovation camp programs. And of course, summits that we organize to put innovation high on the political agenda and to connect all the stakeholders in the industry. And I love very much the introduction of Alessandra, of Remco in the beginning, saying that we're not talking here about sending tourists to space, as actually when we try to introduce the project to the general public, we're always asked, is it about sending tourists to the moon? What's this project about? So no, but thanks to all the advancements that the space tech sector is undergoing, we in the tourism sector, and of course as tourists, we are able to enjoy so many things that we take for granted. Many of them Alessandra mentioned in the beginning, that we are able to take a selfie in a remote area and connect to our loved ones, pay by cards, and of course the space technology, they enable adventures in tourism, which without satellite and Earth observation, it will be impossible to go and explore the world as we know it today. It makes it much more safe and not to mention the impact that the space technology will have for in the future when we try to advance more into a sustainable tourism sector. Of course, just to mention very briefly, the importance why at World Tourism Forum Lucerne we support space technology and innovation. It's also due to the fact that if we try to advance sustainable destinations, space technology is our best ally, as you know, thanks to all the technology, we have the smart city, smart destination. Many of the public bodies that we work together depend heavily on these tools if they want to monitor the safety, well, not just the safety, but as well the environment aspects of the destination and planning. So without further ado, I think the audience is most interested to learn about this project cooperation. What is it about, who we are targeting? So I would like as well to invite Davide into the conversation, and he can as well let us know why as the European Space Agency is as well supporting heavily tourism.
Thank you, Elena, and good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay and see me as well. Right. Okay, so I'm Davide Coppola from the European Space Agency. Briefly about us, I suppose some of you might know us. Is an intergovernmental organization consisting of 22 member states, and our mandate is to promote cooperation amongst European states in space research, technology, and applications. Application part is where I belong to. I'm part of the ESA Space Solutions, and in this team specifically, we look to and seek for helping businesses based in Europe to create commercial services addressing specific verticals, leveraging space technology of different types, from SATCOMs to Earth observation to navigation, etc. Again, through commercial service offerings. How do we do that? We have several tools. We have open call for proposals, by means of which companies can come to us, pitch their ideas, and seek for our support. Or we work with partners who basically are strategic for us to understand the requirements of a given sector. And that's what we are doing basically with the World Tourism Forum Lucerne. We have identified tourism as an area that actually is in enormous need of innovation for obvious reasons relating primarily to the post or to the COVID pandemic, which is causing, of course, a damage in terms of economic aspects and unfortunately societal and other aspects and death, as we all know. And the effect of the pandemic are very visible to the tourism sectors. But in addition to, let's say, to the immediate issues that we are all seeing, I think the COVID-19 pandemic has shown also the need for innovating the tourism and rethink the tourism in a different way. And there are already indications that digitalization and connectivity might help in this transformation journey. That's why, together with the World Tourism Forum Lucerne, we thought of a call to look into technology breakthrough, to look into digitalization, connectivity, and use of other space assets to basically advance innovation in the tourism sector, help them basically recover from the pandemic, and make the sector stronger and more sustainable, as Elena said. So we are looking at the utilization, for instance, of digitalization and connectivity for supporting the shift towards unmanned transportation, to support the rural tourism, promoting remote experience, provide always on and everywhere connectivity, as well as topics related to safety of travels, of course, which are becoming more and more important in the current times. So to this end, together with the World Tourism Forum Lucerne, we are setting up a call, an innovation call, by means of which ESA would offer zero equity funding for companies to develop ideas addressing those and other topics relating to the business sector. And the World Tourism Forum Lucerne is helping us shaping this call and deriving the most important to say requirements. Elena, maybe back to you then.
Thank you. Well, I think as we have most probably some innovators in the audience, I would like to share that there are like 2 tracks that you'll be able to take advantage in the project. So first is about developing a feasibility study, and the other one is about developing a demonstration project. And for both opportunities, the European Space Agency is going to offer free equity funding, as David said correctly. But as well, I wanted to mention that the project is still cooking. We are about to announce the dates for application, most probably in the middle of October. And once we open the call, of course, we will give sufficient time for candidates to apply, minimum 5 months. And the reason why we have, of course, announced already this partnership is that there's another part of the project in that we want to find a working group, which actually is going to be the leaders who are going to give a bit more of the right direction about the case studies that we want to present to the industry and to identify these most important areas that tourism can tackle through space, through the space technologies, such as sustainable tourism services, such as safety and security, and of course, innovation about the way we experience tourism in general. As I've been so pleasantly surprised since I got more involved into the project to see as well that ESA is supporting, for example, companies who enable tourists, for example, to go on expeditions and to become as well reporters and contribute to science. So there are many innovative ways as well that even through the normal tourist experience that we know can become sustainable and more responsible thanks to all these advancements. And I think if there are any questions, maybe we can take Q&A from the audience, as that will be more useful for everyone who listens.
Thank you very much, Elena and Davide. I have no question at the moment for any of the speaker. But again, I remind you that there is the platform where you can like continue the discussion, and as Remco said at the very beginning, in this platform and this forum, we can say there is the opportunity to further exchange on the topic, and you can also find there all the presentations, and you will also find there the recording of the webinar of today.
Alessandra, just to mention that I was well sent a link if there's somebody from the audience who is interested to learn more about the working group and to express interest in that. We're very much open to, to have a conversation going, and would love to hear from them. And for the startup innovators, of course, I'm happy to connect and to keep them updated, once we launch the project, to be able to give them more details and, help them to apply and hopefully to have their project selected.
Thank you very much, Elena, for this point. We can also include in the forum the link to the application that will be open soon. Thank you very much, and I think I'll give the floor back to Remco.
Yes, thank you very much, Alessandra. Thank you very much to all the speakers for your food for thought and your inspiring examples. We do have quite a lively, also very technical debate. So thank you, Emmanuel, for your valuable contributions. So I recommend everyone to have a look at the chat. There are a few questions, a few remarks about some of these things. But in the interest of time, I would like to actually move on to more funding opportunities and hand over the floor to our tender desk specialist, Linda van Duivenbode, who will tell us a little bit about other options for funding in this particular area. So Linda, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Remco. Yes, as I said, my name is Linda. I just want to go through a few opportunities we identified in Horizon Europe, and actually also this goal that was just already discussed, so I don't need to spend too much time on that. So welcome everyone, and I hope you have a little bit of a background information on the framework programs for research and innovation in Europe. If not, you can always reach out to us and we can answer some questions because of time. I have to go through it quite quickly. So if you're not so familiar, it might be a lot of jargon you hear. The most topics, the core topics we identified are from Cluster 6 in Horizon Europe, which is a new research and innovation program. Has several thematic clusters, and this one is for food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture and environment, so quite a broad scope. The first three I identified are from biodiversity and farm to fork destinations, and you can see destination is an area within a work programs. Within the cluster 6 work program, there are destinations, and they are focus areas or portfolios, if you will, of related topics within the work program. So due to biodiversity, ones you see are, for example, very much related. So this first one is a research and innovation action. You can see this from this acronym, RIA, which means it's a bit more research oriented than innovation oriented, which typically means also in ESA terminology, technology readiness level of about 4 to 5 at the end of the project. Projects are expected to be around 3 to 4 million euro per project with a total of 7, i.e. the Commission expects to fund about 2 projects. Not all the calls that are included in this presentation explicitly mention satellite data, but all have been selected because there is reference that would suggest that certainly remote sensing or satellite data like GNSS or communication or Earth observation can be a part of it. In this case, the emphasis is very much on restoration and protection of coastal and marine ecosystems, but mentioning also the relevance of coastal communities for tourism. The second one, impact and independence of business, again, very much related to tourism business, who can either have a direct or indirect, as well as a positive and a negative impact on nature and biodiversity. And this call is asking for scientific evidence. Again, it's a research and innovation action, and the projects can ask 2 to 3 million euro. Again, 2 projects being funded on a total budget of 5 million euro. All 3 of these calls are open already on the portal, and the closing date for them is October 6th of this year. And they're single stage, which means that you need to prepare a full proposal in one go, and it's not split into 2 stages. This one is destination farm to fork, which means that they're looking for fair, healthy, and environment-friendly food systems from primary production to consumption. This is an innovation action, so that means that it's more towards the market, which means that the Commission expects that previous work has already been done in this domain, typically in previous programs, and that they really want to build on the existing state-of-the-art to get products and services closer to the markets. Again, 2 projects will be funded of 5 million euro each out of a total budget of 10 million euro. The innovation action, meaning that private companies get 70% of eligible cost funded, as opposed to the research and innovation action where 100% of direct eligible cost is funded. It doesn't apply to non-profit and research organizations. This one is about sustainable agriculture with an integration to ecotourism. There's another one in 2021, so that's this year's work program. This is the destination communities. That means that the Commission is looking at proposals for resilient, inclusive, healthy and green rural, coastal and urban communities. It's again a research and innovation action. One project will be funded of 6 million euro. It's also open, closing October 6th. Here there is a strong emphasis on social sciences, but also on spatial planning, which suggests that there's definitely room and role for satellite data. I have also included a few 2022, so that's next year's work program. They're already open or available on the portal, not yet open, but I include them because they will open on the 28th of October, so it's actually not that long to go, and they will close on February 15 in 2022. And the second one, yeah, same. So you can already find the call text on the portal and you can start preparing with your consortium and your concept development rather than wait until it's actually open for submission. Again, 2 communities, same as this one here. This one, innovation action, closer to the market, 9 million euro, 1 project will be funded. Second one, research and innovation, 2 projects will be funded, 6 million euro each, approximately out of 12 million euro budget total. The second one, so this one actually does mention satellite data. It actually explicitly refers to satellite data, mentioning EO and GNSS as part of the solutions that they're looking for. I have also included some non-cluster 6 topics. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but Erasmus is the education program of the Commission. They're looking for partnerships for innovative alliances. Actually, what was just posted in the chat about the sectors is very similar to what you will find in this call, because here they're looking for skills alliances. So this is to develop digital entrepreneurship and green skills in different sectors or areas, including tourism and aerospace and defense, and the latter, of course, also including satellites, explicitly mentioned. They're looking for 4-year projects. Closing date is 7th of September, so it's quite quick already. And the maximum grant for this one will be 4 million euro. Could still be interesting to look at. This one is one of the missions. Some missions are very bold, overarching topics within the Horizon budget. This one, again, coming out later this year, so it's not yet open. It's opening on the 28th of September and it will close on the 25th of January. And they're looking for lighthouse projects. 25 million euro total, 3 to 5 per project. So at least 5 projects or so will be developed, and it's a coordination support action, which means that it's meant to bring together in a network or a platform all the existing knowledge in order to find the link between the Bauhaus. So it's really looking at the integration of culture, design, architecture into green spaces and the tourism sectors. Now this one, of course, I won't mention because it was already discussed before. And then the last one that could be interesting to startup companies is this UN World Travel, I think it's central organization, which is looking for more equal and sustainable future for tourism. And they have a call, I included the link here for, it's a startup competition that could be interesting for some of you. And that's it from me.
Okay, thank you very much, Linda. And I will post these presentations, as I said, on the forum, so you can follow all those links and follow up on all those calls that we've seen today. So again, thank you very much for your attention. I will now move to the end of this session, and I will share my screen again. And again, if you're interested in how this whole process of Horizon Europe calls work, please feel free to join us tomorrow. Again, it's a slightly broader topic, but we'll look at many more calls, and we'll also look at the process on how to join possible consortia to work on this. Go to Groundstation.Space to find more information on how to register. Then now I would like to invite you all to join us on the Open Campus Forum. As I said, To go there, you go to the Groundstation.Space website, click on Open Campus in the menu. If you don't have a login for that, you can create a login. So you register, you log in, and then you find the topic. Obviously, it doesn't look like it does in this picture, but you will find the topic, space opportunities for sustainable tourism, where we will post the replay, where we will post the presentations, and where you have an opportunity to meet and discuss the topic 24/7 on the forum. So with that, I would like to thank everyone. I would like to thank our speakers. I would like to thank all the attendees and participants also for the lively discussion in the chat. A little tip, if you want to keep the context that you found in the chat, just go to the chat and make sure you save the chat, which is a one-click in the menu within the chat box here in Zoom. With that, again, thank you very much. I wish you all a very pleasant summer, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again after summer. And Alessandra, do you have some closing words?
Yes. So thank you very much for your participation today, everyone. I hope that the conversation will continue on the forum, and also on behalf of Eurisy, I would like to thank Groundstation for this initiative. So we look forward to September on, and also thanks to all those who participated today and in the previous sessions. And we hope we stimulated a bit the curiosity, and we also triggered the interest on this topic and satellite applications to tackle climate change effects and consequences. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye all.
Thank you. Bye. Have a nice summer all. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.